The United Nations Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon sent his chief of staff to Sri Lanka on Thursday to mediate a solution to the deadlock between the Sri Lankan government and the LTTE rebels regarding the thousands of trapped civilians in the no-fire zone. The Sri Lankan government says a massive army offensive that began in November 2008 has left the Tamil Tigers close to defeat and cornered them in a small area of the northeast. This is at a time when human rights observers express concern over the 250,000 Tamil civilians who've been trapped in the conflict zone where no media outlets are allowed entry. According to local and international sources, the so-called defensive shelling of the Sri Lankan army into the no-fire zone is causing civilian casualties. Tamil civilians who would otherwise have no safe haven, but to continue being stranded in the jungles, left at the mercy of fierce rebel army crossfire. Today, Four Corners asks, are the LTTE Elam rebels really being defeated by the Sri Lankan army? If defenseless people are paying the price for that, and whether a peaceful end is conceivable to a civil war that has taken almost 70,000 lives.
Hi there, my name is Yubin Zarvan, and you're watching Four Corners here on Press TV. Tonight's show is all about Sri Lanka. And joining me to discuss that, in London we have Hugo Charlton. He's an international human rights lawyer. It's good to have you, Mr. Charlton. And again from London, we're joined by Jan Jananayan, Tamils Against Genocide. It's a pleasure having you, sir, and you, ma'am. Now, let me come to you first, John. The government of Sri Lanka claims that they're close to successfully, finally defeating and crushing the LTTE, the rebels. Now, what do you think gives them this confidence? Because, after all, in the past, the rebels have been known to lose territory, to cede territory, only to win it back later.
Well, yes. I mean, the point is that not allowing international press to go forward and verify these claims. So, I mean, I don't see how we can have any confidence in those claims. And as a matter of point, the government it's very important for the government to make this claim right now because they're in the process of hoping to get a loan from the IMF of about $1 billion. I mean, the country is broke and they have to declare victory, and that's what this is about. If their claims are correct, they would, of course, allow the international media in. But because the country is broke and they need to declare victory, what they're doing is targeting civilians, and we hear that they're using chemical bombs. I mean, what they're doing is massively illegal, and the whole incentive is to get these international loans.
Mr. Charlton, do you subscribe to this premise put forward by the other guests that this is just a false declaration of victory by the army?
Well, I'm not a military expert. The general Western consensus is that the government is doing well and that this is an opportunity for them to win the war. I think in reality the chances of winning the war in this way are virtually nil. I mean, this is a long-term problem which can only be solved eventually through dialogue over a long term, even if there is a short-term military victory which is not acknowledged. I think the more serious matter is that the civilians are being involved. That's clearly in breach of international law, and the point is, irrespective of whether or not the civilians are there voluntarily, the shelling and other attacks on the civilian population is clearly a breach of international law.
Now, Jananayagam, tell me, now, let's imagine, suppose for a minute, that the government actually does succeed in trouncing, finally, the tigers. Now, regardless of the humanitarian, the tragic aspect there, now, would that necessarily mean the end of the Tamil separatist ideology as well?
Well, no, and the reason is that, you know, this is not what I consider a mere humanitarian tragedy. We consider this a genocide. What we, as the Tamil people, what we consider this to be is an effort to eliminate the people as a whole. And I agree that there are a lot of violations of humanitarian law. What is missed here is that simply the intent to cleanse the territory of the northern Vani of Tamils is ethnic cleansing. And ethnic cleansing in an annihilatory way is, of course, very, very close to and is, in fact, genocide if you take the parallels with Srebrenica. So, no, it doesn't end unless you kill pretty much